Good morning. This is Tracy on Walk With Me. And I'm thinking, put the camera far enough back so you can't see that I have sleepers in my eyes. I've got I love this, Jesus Saves, bro. I've got my sweatshirt on. I came down this morning and crazy weather here. We had 95 degrees like a week ago and it's like 34 out. And so anyway, it was freezing because we have these heaters, we have to adjust, we don't have central heating there. So anyway, that said, I was looking different places in the scripture this morning alongside of reading my daily Bible. And something that I love, and I feel like God has put in my heart, is to marry Old Testament pieces of scripture with New Testament and seeing how they seamlessly fit together to present a more beautiful or more whole picture of our Father in heaven. Was in Luke 14. He's talking about taking the seats at the table. You're better to take a less prominent seat at the table. And he's continuing on, and then he says, at that banquet, instead invite the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind. Then at the resurrection of the righteous God will reward you for inviting those who could not repay you. So he's teaching them some things. And then one of a man there says, oh, how wonderful this great feast will be. And Jesus goes on to tell this story of a man who was throwing a great feast. And he sent all these invitations out to people and different people. Well, I just got an ox, or I just got married, or I have to do, they had all these things to do. And then so he was upset, and he says, well, go just invite, right? He says, go quickly into the streets and the alleys and the towns and invite the poor and the crippled and the blind and the lame. And then after the servant had done this, he reported. Anyway, so it's an interesting story, but as I was reading this, I was thinking about this passage. I looked it up, but it just came to me. I thought, I was going to title this Jesus Ups the Ante. So we got a poker term here, but whatever. Well, Jesus ups the ante. Indeed, he upped the ante, because in Leviticus 23, which is really God's centerpiece for the biblical feast, Passover we just celebrated, it's very strange because he goes through all the biblical feast, and right there in the center with Pentecost, in the center of this whole, like Moses is giving the official law, is this passage about when you glean your fields, when you harvest your field, leave the edges and the gleanings for the poor and the stranger. And it's kind of, it immediately reminds me of the Lord saying, I'm so sick of your feast. I'm so sick of your new moons and your festivals. And yet there's no justice and you don't take care of the poor. So all of that stuff is hogwash to the Lord apart from doing some of these things. It's meaningless. It's not, because the Lord is after the heart. So we see that in Leviticus 23. It's also in Leviticus, I'm looking at my notes, 19:9. It says, do not reap the very edges or gather the gleanings, leave them for the poor and the foreigner. And so I'm thinking, okay, here they have this in the open field. It's open air and it's just caring for the poor and the stranger. In this piece of scripture, we see Jesus saying, have a party in your house and invite these people. I hope you see that he's upping the ante. And so I, of course, had to look at, if you look at a woman lustfully, already committed adultery with her, or it says with her in his heart. And that whole portion of scripture, Matthew 5, is where basically Jesus says, don't think I've come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law, or to make it whole, to fill it up, to give the full. Jesus was the law on earth to show us how to walk in that truth. And so it's interesting because we had our He is Risen Day. Awesome, awesome, awesome. But this morning I was listening to a song, and it's by Joshua Aaron, and it says, I know it's called He's Coming Again. And I thought, isn't that so great? It's like He is risen indeed. Come. I knew this was going to happen. I don't have enough time to do this video, but He is risen. One second, buddy. Let me finish. He is risen indeed. But guess what, folks? He's coming back again. And so I could go through some of the awesome things in that chapter, Matthew 5. We know, I tell my kids a lot, who are you if you love someone who loves you? Because with siblings, I say, hey, love those who don't love you, pray for those who persecute you. That's a daily thing with your children. And so, because, we tend to... I love you. Mama. Oh, okay. It's time for the bear hugs. Thanks for joining me. I think my mic just went. Hold on. Sim. Okay. He gives me, I want to tell you that he takes every one of my fingers. He kisses this one, then that one, then this one, then this one. He kisses all 10 fingers, then my nose, then this cheek, then my lips, then gives me a hug. It's our little handshake, our secret handshake. So be blessed. Have an awesome day. Thanks for joining me on Walk With Me. See you next time.